Grace and peace from God our Father and from the Son Jesus Christ be with all of us this morning. As we meditate on the words of Jesus and the Gospel, now is the time. Every once in a while, like this week, this past week, we hear things happening around the country, and then we ask ourselves, how that thing happen and why? I'm talking about the school shooting in Santa Clarita, California. And then once I heard about this shooting, I just dug a little bit just to check how many of those happened this year. And I was surprised to hear that in 46 weeks, there have been about 44 school shootings in our country. An average of one school shooting a week. We easily forget, because, so many of them happened. Of those 32, from all of those, 32 are in facilities starting kindergarten. I heard a pastor saying, every so often we are confronted with all the uncertainty that arises from the dawn of what seems to be evil days. This is the sign of the times. The Apostle Paul says to Timothy that the love will get cold. People will be selfish. And all these things would happen. Today in the Gospel, Jesus is warning us about the end of the days and what we will see before it. I am pretty sure we get closer and closer to the end of those days when Jesus is coming back to judge this world. But if we think about it, we will come to the conclusion that there is nothing too new. The humanity has been bad from the beginning. Remember Adam and Eve. Remember Abel and Cain. They chose to do the worst things, not the bad things, the best things. It seems like this world is going down the hill. Jesus today brings us a promise to this world that is in full process of decaying behavior. When we read the Gospel, we think and we are confronted with a reality. Yes, we are living in that era where Jesus already prophesied about it. And we have to get ready. Now, the reading of the Gospel today, it is nice when you read it along with the other, we call it parallels. Matthew 24 and 25, Mark chapter 13, they all form like a block of Jesus' comments and prophecies about the end of times. So when you read Luke chapter 21, you better also give a word on the other readings. But they all tell something. Get ready. Prepare your hearts and minds to receive the Lord and Savior Jesus, because He is coming back. But this one in particular is one of the Bible verses we have to be very careful of how we interpret it. Jesus and the disciples are walking around Jerusalem. And then now they stop in front of the temple. The temple is not the original one built by Solomon. It is a temple built after the people of Israel come back from Babylon, from the captivity. So it's a different one. But it's still beautiful and it still have a lot of grandeur. So the disciples tell Jesus, Look, Jesus, those are stones. They can be 70 feet long, heavy. This thing over here will never, ever fall again. And then Jesus said, yes, it will. And I'm telling you, one day will not be left stone by stone. Everything is going to fall. And now Jesus is prophesizing the end of times when God is going to come and destroy all this world and rebuild again and call all the saints in to have a new perfect life with Him. But Jesus is also telling and foretelling the people that one day an emperor named Titus will come and destroy the temple and destroy the nation of Israel because they are far away from God. So it's a double meaning. Well, maybe not a double meaning, but he has a space for two interpretations. On one hand, God is saying, get ready for the end of times. This thing you worship, almost worship the temple, is going to be destroyed. The days will come, says Jesus, when there will not be left here one stone of another. Those things you worship, those things you care so much for, one day will be all perished. They will all be gone. So don't hang on to it. And in fact, 30 years later, here comes the destruction of the temple. There was not left a stone over stone. He does remind the disciples what it is important. Jesus wants to remind the disciples that it is not so important to know when the things are going to happen, but how they can be prepared for it. In talking about that, Jesus made 3 statements of how we as Christians should prepare our hearts and minds to that big, wonderful day. Yeah, as I say, wonderful day. We can picture that day as a day of calamity, a day of destruction. But for us Christians, it is not. If we are ready to receive the Lord and Savior, it will never be a day of terror. It will be a day of redemption, a day of grace. Here is Jesus saying, don't, but Jesus kind of gives some advice before that thing happens. And he also does apply for our days, of course. If when you read the gospel, if we pay attention to the gospel, on verse, and his advice is to start on verse 8. Jesus said, see that you are not led astray. That's the first advice from Jesus. Those things will happen. Don't let anybody take you astray. It means that you have to keep yourself faithful to the Lord. You have to keep working in His vineyard. There is no better way to keep ourselves busy but to serve the Lord with everything we have, with all our gifts, faithfully in His vineyard. Get involved in church projects, in church activities. It is the best way to keep yourself connected. Not saying that the reading of the Bible and daily prayers are so important. Don't let anybody take you astray. Jesus said, and John, the Apostle John says, you search the Scriptures because you think that in them you have eternal life. And it is they that bear witness about me. The words of Jesus. You search the Scriptures, preparing your hearts to that day. The second advice Jesus gives is Do not be terrified. You are not alone. On verse 9, for these things must first take place, but by the end, you will not be alone. You are not alone. We all know that we are not alone. Jesus, before going to heaven, he said, I will live in the Holy Spirit. I will be with you until the ends of the times. But when we look carefully into the Bible, we see many promises of Jesus to be with all of us. Like the Psalm 46, where God says, God is our refuge and a strength and everlasting present and help in trouble. Like the Psalm 9, the Lord is a refuge for the oppressed. The Psalm 34, those who seek the Lord lack no good thing. God is present in our life. Don't be terrified. And the last one, Jesus said, don't worry. Don't worry. Verse 18 comes with a promise. But not in, this is the metaphor that Jesus used, but not a hair of your head will perish. It doesn't apply for all of us in this congregation. It's okay. It is a promise, and we should never understand like that. So many people have hair falling, just like me. It is a metaphor to say Jesus is taking care of you. God is taking care of you. He will protect and care for you. This is a promise of Jesus that we are living in this time of grace. A time in between the first and second coming, when God gives us all the elements, all the necessary things to keep ourselves connected and in good standing with God, working in His vineyard, receiving the means of grace, praying. It is a time that God and His wonderful love fulfill His promise. It is a time to rejoice with all the Christians in the world that we are saved, that we have His love and His care, that we pass on until the day He's going to come back. This is the time of grace for you and me. We spread the good news of Jesus with the promise that not a hair of your head will perish without His permission. The world might take everything from us, and this is what Jesus really means. And in verse 18, the world might take everything from us, but there is one thing we will never lose once we are connected with Christ. It is the everlasting life in Jesus. Not because we desire, no. It is because Christ, in His first coming, He died for you and for me to assure us the everlasting life with the Father in heaven. His sacrifice on the cross, His blood shed, and the cross guarantees us in the eternal life. Now in this time of grace, we pass on this message of Jesus. He is coming back, yes. There will be terror and there will be a lot of bad things happen. But in His mercy and love, He will be with us and He will guarantee the eternal life. I always like to read John chapter 16 as a way to bring us comfort in those times when we feel like, yes, there is a lot of things going on in our world, and sometimes we don't feel secure at all. Jesus said in John chapter 16, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation. But take heart, I have overcome the world. Jesus have overcome the world for you and for me. He gave us the eternal life. Let us rejoice even in times of tribulation. In His holy name. Amen.